Hey everyone, thanks for checking in to our latest TDR Trade to Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dales. Really interesting conversation here today as we shift over to the psychedelic space. It's been a little over 3 weeks since the FDA came down and declined Lykos Therapeutics' submission for MDMA to be approved. So many investors and a lot of people in this space are concerned about the current state of the industry and where it goes from here. And most importantly, the veterans. What access do they have? What options do they have? We want to find that out as we bring in psychedelic investor and the founder of No Fallen Heroes, which is a big supporter of the veteran community, Matthew Whiz Buckley, back to the podcast. Good to see you. How's things been?
I'm living the dream, my brother. How about yourself?
I love the attitude. Regardless of what life brings at you, you're always living the dream, right?
That's exactly right. It can always be worse.
Good point. I did notice, I know your kids off to college again. Is it your son? He's
Yeah,
off
middle.
campus now, second year at Colorado, correct?
You got it. Sco Buffs. Yeah, second year in Colorado. So second year in Colorado for Coach Prime too. So we'll see how how it goes for both of them.
He's been raising a lot of attention the last couple of weeks, but I saw that it's stipulated in his contract. There's only certain things that you can ask, and I'm just like, well, I'm not surprised, but at the same time too, like, look, that's the price of
Yeah.
being prime, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And
It shows he's a good negotiator, right?
he's a very good negotiator.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, does he have to do this? No, but I think it's more than just coaching. He's trying to make a movement, and man, if
Yeah.
he builds off of what he did last year, college football is
Yeah.
going to change forever. But good for him, right?
Yeah, we'll see, man. Going to be a long season, but I'm excited.
Yeah, wanted to have you on because, like I said off the top, August 9th, the FDA basically came down and declined to approve the novel MDMA therapy to treat PTSD from the application, which was submitted by Lykos Therapeutics, as everybody knows. So they outlined that they need to see more trial data. And since then, it's kind of left a lot of people investing in this space, looking at this space, that they're concerned with the current state of the industry and maybe casting some doubts. So, how
Yeah.
would you best describe where we are right now and really where we go from here?
Yeah, a couple things to lead off with. If you're shocked at the decision, you just really haven't been paying attention to what's going on, right?
Okay.
There was no way in hell that big pharma was going to let something like this get through. Big pharma's not ready for it, right?
No.
And and we can dig into some of these names, whether it's Compass, Cybin, some of the other names in the past year or two, as they've released some of their good news. I think it was the Compass and Cybin CEO both kind of said, hey, our MM 120 or, whatever, no psychotherapy. Because remember, Rick Doblin and MAPS kept pushing as part of their drug application. Well, there's a lot of laying on the couch time. And to be honest with you, the FDA doesn't really care about laying on the couch time. They are the
Yes.
Federal Drug Administration, not the Federal Laying on the Couch Psychotherapy Administration. So I wasn't too shocked. And let me just say this. I sat with Rick Doblin in Washington talking to lawmakers. And I remember sitting in Kay Granger's office.
Yeah.
And I went first, right? And they're like, tell us about your veteran Whiz. Tell us about your psychedelic experience. And I led with my Ibogaine experience and my 5-MeO experience with Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor, and JT, Jared Taylor, one of the founders of Black Rifle. And I gave him just 12 to 14 hours, the most therapeutic thing I've ever done in my life. I gave my whole thing, man. And then Rick went and gave him his MDMA thing. And I remember one of the staffers going, why aren't you leading with this Ibogaine thing?
Mm-hmm.
And Rick said, well, our thinking is this MDMA is the most recent thing that you guys clipped, right? 1985, an unelected bureaucrat in the Reagan administration, with a signature said Schedule 1. So we figured since it's the one with the most recent research,
Okay.
we'll just blow the dust off of it and you guys will approve it again. And I remember sitting there, Shad, going, I wouldn't have led with MDMA. It's got the stigmas, the party drug, and it had way too many warts, in my opinion. I remember sitting there looking at Rick going, hey, man, this guy's been doing this for 3 decades. I'm going to defer to him. But after the FDA ruling, I'm like, you know what? Enough. Shift the firepower to the plants. Ain't no recreational use of Ibogaine. I got my ass kicked for 12 to 14 hours and could barely move, right? So got zero recreational stigma,
Yes.
and it's an addiction interrupter.
Yes.
I'm not proud to say this. I can be proud to say this now. I was a drinker, bro. And I don't know if you can be a good drinker. I was a bad drinker.
Yeah.
I couldn't look at alcohol for about a year
Yeah. I remember you
after
saying that.
Ibogaine. It made me want to retch. Now I can have a glass of wine if I choose with my steak or my pasta. But old Whiz, a glass of wine was a bottle or two. So,
Yeah.
really long answer to your short question. After this happened, I'm like, that's it. Shift the firepower to the plants. Ain't no, that AdCom, the 11 people that voted, I could have negated just about every one of the punches they landed with a plant. Not a dude in a lab coat with a beaker, or a dude taking advantage of a poor lady,
Yeah.
on the couch type of thing. So we got to shift fire, man. It's in the military, Shad, as a fighter pilot, you don't have to attack sequentially, right? We have to
Yep.
blow up A before we get to B, before we attack C. We attack in parallel. We attack A through C, right? Shock and awe from Operation Desert Storm. We just go A through C, baby. And we didn't. So, some of my sister organizations I support MDMA for therapeutic use, and there's a bunch of veterans up on Capitol Hill, really kind of trying to go full throttle, and I supported that. But man, at the end of the day, I really think we need to shift to the plants, and I'm glad that some of these companies have learned from Rick and Lykos and Maps the lessons learned of what not
Yeah.
to do, and are going to focus on how to do these trials right.
When did you go to Washington with Rick? How long ago was
That
that?
was 22, 23,
So this has
I
been
think. Yeah, I forget.
probably in the back of your mind on the outcome of this for not just recently, but this has been like a year or two.
Yeah.
When you left that day, were there doubts at all on how the outcome would be?
Um, with lawmakers, no. But this is the funny thing about, quote, and I don't call them leaders, right? Shad, they're lawmakers or politicians. I remember, behind closed doors, some of these so-called leaders or lawmakers, oh, Wiz, we love what you're doing, but you're gonna have a problem with big pharma, and the alcohol and tobacco folks. And I'm like, I'm gonna have a big problem. Isn't that your job, dude?
No
Who,
kidding.
who are you talking to? I'm gonna have
Did
a
you
problem.
say that? Did you say that?
Oh, dude, yeah, with a little bit more color, to be honest with you.
What was their reaction when you said it that
Well, yeah, Wiz, yeah, of course it's, yeah, dude, it's disgusting. I felt like I had to take a shower 9 times that day because it was just it's filth, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't wait to leave. Um, but with MDMA, in the lead up to this, what was it? 60 lawmakers, Republican and Democrat. I remember seeing a headline, a year ago. The headline said Dan Crenshaw and AOC. And I didn't want to read the rest of the headline. I'm like, did they kill each other, get into a fist
Yeah.
fight?
Yeah,
Crenshaw and AOC agree on psychedelic assisted therapy for veterans. So,
I remember that.
long answer to your short question, bro. This was the first issue in, I think, probably 40, 50 years I can remember in DC that they agreed on. So
Yeah.
half of me was like, how can this fail? They
Mhm.
60 lawmakers a month or two ago sent a letter to Joe, to Kamala, to the FDA that said, you have got to approve this for therapeutic use. So half of me was like, you know what? How can the FDA say no?
Mhm.
And then half of me remembered being behind closed doors and being warned that big pharma and the alcohol and tobacco lobbies ain't going to be too thrilled with what you're doing. I
So
was blown away.
we're still very much involved in that ecosystem where they tell you what you wanna hear, but when it comes push comes to shove, it's the complete opposite, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's defeating. It's
Oh,
very frustrating to
it's
say the
horrible,
least.
man. It's, especially
'Cause
since we,
you get a front row seat. Like, yes, you can speculate, and yes, people can talk about the campfire, having a drink or 2, over the weekend, and you can, like,
yeah,
speculate on what they think. But when you actually get in a plane, go to Washington, meet with these people,
yeah,
and you see it firsthand. I did that back in April. I'm gonna be going back in a couple of weeks, but
yeah.
to me and some of the people that we've had on recently, Wow. It's
Well,
an
and
eye-opener.
it just shows you the insane power of the federal bureaucracy. These are unelected people at the FDA. You got, Morgan Luttrell, Congressman Luttrell, Navy SEAL who sat with the medicine. You have folks who've actually done this, Republican and Democrats saying, "Hey, you need to approve this for therapeutic use," and some faceless, nameless organization known as the FDA says no. I just can't even. It hurts,
Mm,
and it hurts even more because you do talk to the lawmakers, and they kind of give you the stunned look, like,
I
well,
know.
they give you the shrug. I'm like, how can you be shrugging? This is we the people, dude. And I think you and I talked about this last year, maybe out at Psychedelic Science, man. I told you this is a we the people movement.
Yeah.
This ain't gonna come from them. It's coming from us up and not them, because an unelected bunch of bureaucrats at the FDA said no to lawmakers.
To me, it's you hit it right on. But the thing that I keep learning more and more is that for the longest time, I thought, well, we can rely on Washington. Eventually, they'll understand, and eventually, they'll make move. Like that's so far from the truth.
Yeah.
We
I
have to do something about it. But you're right; it's a movement. And when you look at the suicidal rates, I think
Yeah.
me personally, was I shocked that it was declined? No. But what I was shocked was just some of the stuff I read and how these trials were conducted.
Yeah.
That's the thing that blew my mind away. And
Yeah.
do you think, I don't know, like if I had to give it a scale of 1 to 10 on some of the concerns that were in place, like if I had to rate on how these trials were conducted, like again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor,
Sure.
but it would be below 5 for
Yeah.
sure. But at the same time, do you feel if it was, like, not as outrageous with some of the concerns that were outlined in these trials, that if it was just good enough, it could have gotten approved? Or
I'm with you, bro. I think if it was like 51% good, they should
yeah,
have said yes. I think all they did was focus on the bad. They went out of their way to ignore scores of veterans, first responders, family members, and even civilians that have said, "Hey, MDMA therapy saved my life."
yeah,
But man, you're in the industry. If it bleeds, it leads.
yep,
So let's just focus. Let's put big spotlights on the bad and ignore all of the good. And that day, my phone blew up. Man, there was a bunch of
I
veterans,
bet.
on the edge, and I'm like, no, 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 don't worry. And that's where I really started attacking, especially online. I'm like, hey, man, done. You can be in the background with your MDMA stuff. I've been the plants, and let's stick with the plants. All of the warts that the MDMA trials and everything had
Yeah,
are non-existent with the plants. Period. So and it really frustrates me, Shad, because
I bet.
MDMA got, what was it, breakthrough status
Yeah,
from the FDA in what, 2018, I think it was. So I don't know what the definition of breakthrough therapy status is, clearly, because I thought the FDA, and according to Rick, they were joined at the hip. The way Rick talks, he's like, "We talk to the FDA every day, man. This ain't,
I
we're not
believe
going to."
that too.
Yeah, that's, I think that's an exact quote from him. He's like, we're joined at the hip, and we talk to these people all the time. The fact that it was that's
I got the
I'm
assumption the FDA was working with them
yes,
to
that's
carry it
what
along to make sure this did get approved.
they
So, what went missing? And if you wanna agree or disagree with what we're saying here, there's no better, like, source of information that defines what we're saying. Lykos has laid off 75% of their staff in the last 3 weeks.
correct.
So that's a stat right there that said, "Okay,
We were
yeah, we
shocked.
made some mistakes, but we
Yeah,
made a lot of mistakes."
correct.
75% of people have been laid off. But
Yeah.
I was under the assumption that conversations, no one really knows what goes on behind the closed doors. But look, if there was something that they were doing, or if there was something they need to pivot and change, I thought the relationship with the FDA, and given the current suicidal rate, they were going to hold their hand along the process to make sure that we had more than just what we currently have right now. But that wasn't the case, which again,
Apparently, it's not just you and I, Shad, because everybody I talked to kind of had that stun. Like, I thought you guys were squadron mates. There's two type of, there's breakthrough therapy status, this inbox, and then there's the inbox over here, which we'll get to in about 50 years. So I was led to believe that, you're joined at the hip and there ain't going to be any surprises. So I'm
Mhm.
absolutely stunned at that. But that also goes to show you the power of the swamp, to use a pejorative. Man, these people just don't give a shit. I've seen so much corruption in government, from like Boeing trying to build a tanker and officials were bribed. Not alleging that at the FDA, not saying any nefarious is going on. It would not shock me
Hmm.
if you followed. I- it breaks my heart I have to use this sentence, but this is the state of our country and essentially the world right now: is follow the money. Who stands to gain from that decision? And we all know that answer. And I was told by lawmakers behind closed doors to keep an eye. You're going to have to keep an eye out for those type of people. So MDMA, 3 to 5 years from now, will probably get approved, but it may not be Lykos. And we've talked about this
Good
before,
point.
bro.
Good point.
You know, if you're Janssen, or if you're the CEO of Pfizer, Moderna, or fill in the blank here, and you're sitting on the top floor of the headquarters with your cigar in the Wall Street Journal, you're letting all these companies in the psychedelic space burn through the cash, burn through the phase. Let them do all the heavy lifting with their phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, new drug applications, and you're going to swoop in with your size 12 checkbook and just scoop it all up. I
Saying that,
guarantee you that's going to happen.
do you think a big company, like when you look at from what I'm gathering is just MDMA was not the best foot forward as far as presenting to the FDA. You would have liked to have seen something like an Ibogaine or something more plant-based versus like,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
that's a challenge. So when we look at some of these other companies like Compass, it seems to be, as far as commercialization, I think they're actually on the clock as far as 2027, the closest to being commercialization. They've
Mhm.
raised a lot of money. They're classified as probably the leading company in the entire space.
Mhm.
Do you think we will wait and see until we get actual approval from the FDA? Or could you see, like you said, as we're doing all this work and burning through a lot of this cash,
Mhm.
like a Johnson and Johnson or a Pfizer come in and scoop them up within the next couple of years?
I have no doubt. Mindmed and their MM-120, it's really
True, good
interesting.
point. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Over the past 12 months, I've seen the CEO of Mindmed and Compass take a not so veiled swing at Lycos and Rick and Maps by saying, "Hey, our MM-120 for, I think it's GAD, generalized anxiety
It
disorder,
is.
has X amount of success." And the next sentence was, "and no psychotherapy." This was like 6, 8 months ago. I remember reading his words. I'm like, wow, he's doing a little bit of a poke across the aisle to Lycos and MDMA. As we talked about at the beginning,
I've heard that from a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's no lay on the couch with our MM-120 product, or Compass's. I forget what the name of theirs is. They go out of their way to stress this is take it and feel better. No laying on the couch. So I
And
don't
insurance
think.
companies are gonna like that too. Less time means less costs, and the big concern for them right now is that it works, because I do know
Yeah,
with a lot of these drug companies, insurance companies are getting frustrated because it's not working, which we all know.
I don't want to spike the football on MDMA or anything right now, but I am speaking from personal experiences. One weekend in Mexico, 12 to 14 hour Ibogaine experience, better than the 3 to 6 month Maps MDMA. I think you had to do it 3 times, and there's a lot of talk in between. I mean, we do a lot of integration after our Ibogaine experience. Don't get me wrong; there's still work to do, but I'm telling you, man, one Ibogaine treatment, and 85%. One of the studies I saw, 85% of heroin addicts never, after one Ibogaine treatment, can't even stomach to look at the stuff again, and that was up to 3 years after the treatment. They stopped the study because they're like, we doubt after 3 years they're going to go back to heroin if they haven't touched it in, after the Ibogaine. So with the fentanyl,
Once.
and
Once.
once with the fentanyl and opioid crisis in this country, why aren't we leading with Ibogaine? And I know Rick also, when we were talking to lawmakers, he brought up that Ibogaine can potentially lower your heart rate. Guess what? Stanford did a study recently. You can Google it, Stanford Ibogaine study with Navy SEALs, and they use some magnesium and some other stuff there are ways to mitigate it. But Shad, that also would have showed the public, like, hey, it's a real medicine. When Whiz went to the mission within, he had to do an EKG. He was on an EKG throughout the night. They had 2 nurses there. There was a cardiologist sleeping downstairs in case, God forbid, something happened. It would have shown the seriousness of this instead of, MDMA, heart opener. We all love each other. When I was laying on my back, and Marcus and JT sounded like they were getting, cut in the calf with an axe. I'm like, holy shit, what's going on with those guys?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's more serious, but it's completely different experience than MDMA, and just does not have the stigma of, oh, it's a party drug. I'm telling you, bro, when I watch the AdCom land punches, I'm like, nope, with Ibogaine, no with psilocybin, no with the plants. And we led with that. But, like Marcus said, in Lone Survivor, when his buddy, who was a Danny Dietz, is like, holy shit, I got shot. He's like, dude, you're living in the past. We're in a gunfight right now. Get over it. So
Yeah.
that happened with Lykos. That happened with MDMA. It's in the past. Let's focus right now on what the future can be. And I think Compass, Cybin, Mindmed, Atai, all the other names that are not focusing on MDMA have learned from that train wreck, and they're
Yes.
applying the lessons learned to make sure that doesn't happen to them, which is good. It's bullish in
Yeah.
my opinion.
What I do like about some of the companies that you outlined too, we reached out to them for interviews post this announcement, even after what the FDA came back in early June. A lot of them said, look, let's let things subside. Timing's everything. So I did
Yeah,
like and appreciate how they just said, look, let's not add fuel to the fire.
correct.
You could tell obviously they were concerned with some of the stuff that was conducted, but let's step back, remove ourselves from that, and realize this does not represent the whole entire industry. And who knows what happens.
Yeah,
As you said, Lykos may come back 3 to 5 years from now, have MDMA approved, or it could be another company. But
yeah,
based on the changes, the new appointments that they've aligned for the company itself, clearly, with people with big pharma backgrounds are getting involved in this. So it's
yeah,
clearly a point of interest for this space. So I guess it goes back to my first question off the top. Where do we go from here? So, yes,
yeah.
it's challenging. And yes, it's not the outcome that we wanted. But again, it's biopharma. It takes time, right?
Yeah. Well, we learn, as you know, man, of your advanced years like me, you learn more from your failures sometimes than you do your successes, right? So we're gonna dust ourselves off from this, and I think, Shad, one of the biggest lessons learned from the MDMA mishap, so to speak, it can't be person focused. I think, Maps kind of transitioned a little too late to Lycos, but Rick was still kind of the face of this thing. I love Rick Doblin. I think he's one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met in my life, and his efforts have saved and changed lives. I probably would have faded that guy to the background pretty quick and brought in a buttoned up suit pharma executive type of thing. That's hindsight. But going forward, whether it's Mindmed, Compass, Cybin, Atai, Buckley, some of these other solid companies, they don't have a dude or a lady as in the military, we called it a what? SPF, not suntan lotion, single point of failure. Do you
Hmm.
have a single point of failure in your organization that, for better or worse? I mean, not to use this in the same sentence with Rick Doblin, but look at the damn Subway guy, Jared type of thing, or some of these, football players that end up, being spokesmen for something and they get drunk or, have domestic abuse events. So going forward in this space, I would not have it be a single kind of person leading the way.
You make a good
That's
point.
Yeah, that's why you and I, when we talked offline, the veterans, I ain't got nothing wrong with hippies, but this time around, this quote psychedelic revolution, we got a lot of veterans and first responders going, hey man, this saved and changed my life. Maybe regular
That's the
mom.
first, there's a stigma around this industry, whether you want to accept it or not. The
Yeah,
people that are making the decisions at the end of the day, there is a stigma around it.
correct.
So we even fall in the cannabis space, rescheduling. It's gotten pushed back. So now there's a hearing December 2nd. We had a Twitter space the other day and said, I hope the people that come and present themselves, whichever all walks of life and how you present yourself, you
Yeah,
got to obviously dress to the occasion. So if it's a hearing, you got to
yeah,
come as business. Like this is
yeah,
serious, right? But I
correct.
think with this psychedelic space, the first step has got to be veterans. We look at the suicidal rate. You're a nonprofit organization, No Fallen Heroes. Like, what's some of the feedback in addition to what you've outlined already
Yeah.
on what they've been saying?
Man, you and I have talked about this before, but what was it, 3 years ago? Uncle Sam was telling us 17 veterans a day are taking their lives, which is obscene. It's a heartbreaker. And
Yeah.
then the University of Alabama and Duke dug into the government numbers, and Uncle Sam was only counting violent suicides. When they dug into the numbers, He drank himself to death. She overdosed. The number's closer to 44 veterans per day.
A day.
Or a day. It's a mass shooting, my brother. God, I can't even
Somebody
stand
could be
talking.
dying right now as we speak.
In the hour we're talking, bro, a couple veterans are going to check out on their own.
It's wild.
And it's a mass shooting. Could you imagine, God forbid, 44 kids were shot every day in a school, let alone once a year? I'm talking daily. This country would flip the hell out and we would do something. I mean, look at, who was it, Trump? Operation Warp Speed. So the FDA, when it wanted to, rammed through in months in untested gene juice type of thing. And we got we got a COVID, shot pretty damn quick, didn't we? And we're kind of regretting how quick that went. But my point being is this: as veterans, in the military, we were about execution. This is the mission objective. Here's how we're going to get it done. Let's go.
Yeah.
Forward is a direction. So as veterans, we are so frustrated. I'm telling you, man, we look at the COVID operation and we're like, when the government wants to, the FDA wants to, they stand up pretty quick and run in a direction, and they're not doing it for us. So you got a lot of pissed off veterans right now going, man, you just don't give a shit about us. And Shad, that's a national security issue, bro, because there isn't, besides the Marines, there isn't one service that meets recruiting goals. You know why? Because the number one source of recruitment for the military for generations has been us. My dad served, and I know hundreds, if not thousands of veterans. I can count on maybe 3 fingers the number of veterans who want their kids to serve. Who was it? The Secretary of the Navy, or no, the Secretary of Defense the other day said we're parking 17 combat ships in the United States Navy because we don't have manning. We don't have the crews. So this is a national security issue. If we don't treat our veterans better and keep them from checking out,
that's a good point.
On their own, it's a national
really
security issue, dude.
Wow. I didn't even look at it that way.
Well, not only that. So here's how lawmakers think. When I was up there talking about this, I was with another MDMA person. Rick and I broke up, and I was with a female Marine, former Marine, great MDMA expert. And this was right around the time, so it was a year and a half ago, when Joe Biden said we're going to give 31 M1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. And I remember talking to this congressman, and I said, hey, man, for the price of one M1 Abrams tank, you could probably heal X amount of veterans and their PTS. And that guy goes, don't you talk to me like that. I'm an appropriator, Whiz. That's a different pot of money. That's a national security pot of money. And this money would be, I'm like, dude, when you take it out of my pay, it's one pot of money in my paycheck. I don't care what you call it in DC. And Juliana Mercer is her name, just came to me. She kind of patted my arm like throttle back Whiz, because she could tell I was about to rip into this guy. And she brought up money math. She goes, I don't have the numbers because she's an expert at it, but she goes, Congressman, we spend whatever, $10 billion a year on PTS and this and that and the prescriptions. And she went through a flow chart of money with this congressman who was an appropriator. And he looked at her and he goes, well, now you're talking. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You cared about the money, not about the 44 a day. So she got into sync with this congressman about, well, if you spend this and then you're ready for this, dude, this will blow you away. He goes at the end of this, he goes, well, if we cured all these veterans of their PTS, they wouldn't need their disability payments anymore. Oh, and she and I both go, whoa, stop. This guy, so this is dangerous, bro. This is how gross these people are. This guy actually got to the point like, wait, we could save all this money on PTS treatment with the VA and prescriptions. And I thought he was going to stop there. And then he went further and said, well, how much do we pay them in disability? I'm like, you son of a bitch, man. You almost read about me on the news, bro, because I left that office. I had to leave because that's how they think. Trust me, Juliana, we left that office. She's like, dude, I'm like, man, if this was old Whiz, thank God I had done the medicine because That was as close as I've gotten a throttle in somebody in years, man. But that's how they think. So that's
I'm all look,
the
I'm all for capitalism, but at what cost?
bro, I'm telling you, man, that's the danger. So, fellow veterans out there, that's how Washington will think someday is like, wait a minute, we cured your PTS. So now you don't get your $3,000 a month that you're living off of for disability. Could you imagine? And Chad, I'm not joking. They would most likely consider doing that. Well, clearly, because that worried me. Because Rick's like, hey, man, 70% of people in the phase 3 MAPS trial don't have PTS anymore. I thought about this on my own. I'm like, you know what? Those son of a bitches in DC would probably, don't tell me they're all cured, Rick, because that might actually not be a good thing. And then this congressman kind of confirmed my worst fear. Well, if we cure these people, we don't have to pay them. So let that sink in, folks.
I don't even know how to let that sink in.
Dude, if I wasn't there, man, it was gross. And their staffers, the staffers behind this guy were like, oh, yeah. And they're taking notes. I'm like, whoa. I did say, if a woman or man served this country and incurred trauma, even if they're, quote, cured by MDMA, they deserve to get those benefits the rest of their life. And he just kind of gave me a little look type of thing like, oh, yeah, okay, Whiz. Unbelievable. So welcome. So that little story right there, folks, should tell you how FDA probably ruled against MDMA too, man. There are, I can't stand talking like this, but there are darker forces at work in DC. Why do you think they call it the Beltway, man? Once you land at those airports and go into town, you're in a different world, dude. It is a different world, period.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Welcome to my world, man. This is why I just, man.
Good for you to keep fighting, though. I think ultimately it's like, look.
Well, what's the choice, right, man? We have I have no choice.
The only thing we have, like, how do you change? And from what I'm seeing, it's time. It sucks, but it's time.
My dad, my dad, Shad, told me, be the change you want to see in the world. I'm just trying to, I got my mouth guard in, my chin strap fastened, and I'm pressing right up the middle, man. Like old time football. General Patton, famous quote, lead, follow, or get out of the way. So we're just going to barrel. We're just going to keep what we're doing, man. And you've heard me say this before, but it's worth repeating. These medicines are the world's greatest Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
You heal, you come home and you go, wow, look at me. I was a drunk. I was a bad husband. I was a bad father, horrible human being, and I've never been better. Let me help you. Let me put the ladder down to maybe help you. That's how we fix all this.
We've seen some stats that say in some cases when you're going through some of this therapy, it could increase suicidal thoughts. Do you want to clear the air on that and what that actually does mean?
I absolutely have read that or seen those type of things. I will tell you, Shad, in over 3 years of doing this, knock on wood, we haven't seen any of that.
Nothing.
I've seen it reported. I've seen it talked about at the No Fallen Heroes Foundation.
It's a very, very rare occasion, kind of like any medication that you get. Am I understanding that correctly?
It's fear porn. So, Chad, recently, Rolling Stone had an article, about some, bad, or a guy went to Beyond in Mexico and didn't come back type of thing. First of all, the guy was a complete addict on his last leg. People don't die from Ibogaine or Iboga. They die from an underlying condition, of either heart issues or heroin or whatever. So I think it was an article in Rolling Stone a month or two ago that said there have been 33 reported deaths on Ibogaine. A 0.02 Google search out of me after reading that sentence, 3,000 people die every year from aspirin therapy. Google it. 3,000 in a year. And over the decades that people have been using Ibogaine to heal, they can document 33 cases. Again, if it bleeds, it leads. It's fear porn. Anybody, because, I've talked to people who they hear about me and they Google Ibogaine and I get a text right back like, oh, look, people die. I'm like, here we go. Yeah. So it is extremely rare to have an adverse event, and it's extremely rare for somebody to come home. And I haven't heard somebody come home and go, I'm worse. That sucked. It was a waste of time. Has that happened? I guarantee it has. It hasn't happened with anybody we've worked with, because Shad, it's work when you get home. When you get home with a clean piece of paper, you gotta change some if you go back to all the crap that made you ill and sick. That's why Ibogaine's great, man, because you can't
Well,
pick
you
up a
know how to
bottle.
handle those situations better, and most importantly, you don't put yourself into those situations, right?
Correct.
You look at life differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Not only that, but you're doing your integration calls with your coach and your new squadron. You're given a new lease on life. I don't use this sentence too often, born again, but I was born again. I came home with a clean sheet of paper. What you do with it when you're given this new clean sheet of paper is up to you. If you want to crumple it up and throw it in the trash, bad things are going to happen. But Shad, that's a lot of fear porn. Not saying it doesn't happen. I haven't seen it, and my sister squadrons. It's been pretty rare as well. But again, the media, maybe funded by some of these big pharmas we talk about, push push the bro. You and I were at psychedelic science. It
Yeah.
had it had hippies, it had veterans, it had Republican governors and presidential candidates, it had Democrat governors. I've never seen a more eclectic
I
group
know.
of people all aligned to the same mission. But it's funny because I remember walking around seeing a bunch of guys in like khaki pants, and I'm like, they're either feds or they're pharma executives. And
Yeah.
and my buddy looked at, I think it was Carcillo, was like, dude, that's both. They're one and the same. I'm like, that's a good point.
One thing's for sure though, like, when I was at that, it was a very positive, conference, I thought, as far as the takeaway, the support, which was great. It was
Yeah.
nice to see. I think a lot of people too that are dealing with stuff up here, they're not the average 9 to 5 people. They could be, but, a lot of people are just out there, and, there's
Hmm.
just a lot of entertaining, interesting people that you meet within that space. Ones that can make you laugh, ones can make you
Yeah.
cry, but I don't wanna make this all about, like, kumbaya, but it's just, like, I think the most important thing is, um, we look at this industry, and from what I'm gathering is regardless of what's happened recently, you still feel as strong, if not stronger, based on all these other companies like the Cybins, Compass, Mindmeds of the world, and the trials and research that they're doing. That
Yes.
eventually, as we've said all along the last couple of years here, that we will eventually get approval.
I'm more bullish because of the failure. As we talked about, in fighter aviation, we don't call, if a plane crashes, it's not an accident. Accidents don't happen. It was a mishap. So with the Lykos mishap, we get into a room with a whiteboard and we go, what didn't work? What are we going to fix? How do we improve our execution? So all these other companies saw that Lycos mishap and go, here's how we're not going to do that. It almost would have been too easy, Shad, for the FDA to be like, yay, MDMA for everybody and game on. I never thought that was going to be happen like an immediate game on. I thought there was going to be a middle, some sort of path instead of just an outright no and maybe submit everything all over again. I was stunned by that. But like you and I talked about a little while ago, you learn more from your failures. So I am more bullish,
Yeah,
and more
good
bullish
point.
because the other companies aren't going to do the couch and the potential scuzziness that happened and some other type of stuff. And I think things are tighter.
There's a
Uh,
blueprint that's been created, right?
Amen. You nailed it, bro. And as a guy on the front lines in a fighter squadron of healing with these people, I see the results. There's no way this can't happen. And if we're just going to barrel over the federal government, I mean, thank you, Oregon. Thank you, Colorado. And I think Arizona might be up next. Maybe where are you, Newsom? Where is California? I would have thought you guys would
Mhm.
have been blazing a path here. So um, they have no other choice but to do it. As I said, this is a we the people moment, and we're going to do it. We are doing it, and
Yeah.
kind of like with weed and marijuana, the states had the lead, and Uncle Sam Joe is still sitting on the beach somewhere, diddling. So let the states lead, and then Uncle Sam will finally catch up, in my opinion.
You brought up Mindmed too. Their chief medical officer has over 30 years of experience with the FDA. That is a company to watch. And some of the data that they've come out with over the past 6 months or so has been like
Yeah.
groundbreaking.
I
So,
like I like these names like a Mindmed, a Compass, and a Cybin. They're doing the quiet professional thing,
yeah.
man. They're
Yeah.
operating in the
That's the thing.
background.
I,
Yeah.
I, I think about, I've never interviewed the CEO of Compass. When I think of Atai, there's Florian Brand, there's Christian
Angermeyer. Yeah.
Agermeyer.
Yeah.
It's like a team approach. Mindmed,
Correct.
Robert Burrow, like Dr. Robert Burrow, we've had him on once, but they're not screaming to like, make it face. And it's look, at the end of the day, it's all about the science.
That's exactly right, man. So yeah, they're not Rick Doblins. And again, I love the dude, and he's blazed this
I don't
path.
wanna I think we owe a lot of respect for him because he
God,
started the
yeah.
conversation, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah,
as
yeah,
you
yeah.
said, there's some things that we learned along the way,
Correct.
and yes, some mistakes were made, but maybe that's the destiny for someone like him, but you can't have the
Correct.
utmost respect for him knowing that he's
Yeah.
been involved for this for, like, 40 years.
Yeah, I think yeah, he took the lessons learned from the '60s, the train wrecks of the '60s. Hey, let's put it in the water. Timothy Leary and all, Ram Dass, and all. I think he cut half of that out, and he was our guy. I think we have to slice half of Rick, so to speak, and put the other half of Rick more into a suit and a tie, and a
Agreed.
little bit more level headed. So, you know, NASA comes up with a term I think we're going to use here with Rick and Lykos and MDMA, a successful failure.
Yeah,
I would call that a successful. Apollo 13, they didn't get to the moon, man, but they got home safe. They get three dudes in a parachute, landed in the ocean. They called that a successful failure. I will define what happened with Lykos as a successful failure because we've learned from it, and it's ultimately going to lead to success for the industry.
yeah,
There's no other choice.
yeah. I love the term, "the wrong turn down the right road," right?
That's exactly right. That's a
That's
great
exactly
point.
it.
Yep.
Listen, always great catching up with you. I feel like I could, I don't know, have you been watching Dan, a couple of these guys, Joe Caltabiano, Carcillo, and
Oh
Cody,
yeah,
they're getting up at
Cody.
6 a.m. doing these jogs, and I'm thinking,
I'm going to bed at 6 a.m., man. These guys.
but
No, no,
good
no.
for Joe though, man. He is looking like he's lost a lot of weight, and he's doing a great job. So if Joe gets a chance to see this, keep up the great work, my
Yeah,
friend.
he's
And I'm sure,
turning into the brick shit house, man. He was a division one tennis player or something like
was he
that, or
really?
yeah, D1 tennis player. I think that's
Sure
why he.
he's happy with his this rookie quarterback. I know he's a big Bears fan, but man, he looks lights out. But I told him a year ago, I said, give Justin Fields a chance. He's the guy. And I saw him in the preseason in Pittsburgh, and I think Joe was right. He's not the guy, but they got a guy now there. But football
Yeah,
season about to begin. Best of luck,
yeah,
obviously, your kids
I
heading into this
appreciate that.
fall. And
Yeah.
most importantly, let's please keep in touch. All right.
Yeah, brother. Make sure you try and we got our No Fallen Heroes Foundation jet out in Colorado through the winter, and then it'll be
Oh,
down here to fly donors.
aren't you
Um,
flying what game is it or something like that you're flying over in the fall? I
no, not in December. We're going to be at that NHL alumni game
Yes.
again in Carbondale. You got to come to that, man. We flew Henrik Lundqvist last year and Scotty Upshaw. So I think it's December 12th. Be in Carbondale, Colorado for the NHL alumni game. It's an outdoor rink at night.
Yes.
So yeah, come down for that, man, or
So
over
they
for
got
that.
what, alumni game from, like, around the league, or is it like the
All the
Wow,
alumni from the Colorado Avalanche. Lundqvist was in net last year, and that was their first. Carcillo was out on the ice. That was their first year.
that's
Now
amazing.
that it's gotten out, I was talking to Sheldon. He's like, dude, we're turning guys away this year. So hell, we Bobby Orr might be out there or Gretzky or something like that. So if you're a hockey fan, come out there and support the Colorado Extreme. But I brought that up because I want to take you flying in the jet, man. We got to go bend the airplane around.
I went go-karting with my daughter 3 weeks ago, and I came back home late in bed for an hour 'cause I was busy.
You might not be too. All right, we'll talk.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
see.
see, but, you also before I let you go, you got a chance to hang out with, Kevin Costner as well over the summer, which was pretty cool. Was that July 4th?
That was July 4th, man.
Does it get
On
any
it.
more American than that? Just hanging out and on a ranch with, Kevin O'Leary on July 4th. That's about as American
Yeah,
as it
yeah.
gets.
Kevin Costner. I would
Or
love
oh,
to hang out
sorry,
with Kevin O'Leary.
sorry, Kevin Costner, my apologies.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Kevin on his ranch on 4th of July on Aspen it doesn't get any more American than that. He's got his own lake and
That's amazing.
the kids were having canoe races. He's a good dude. So this year for 4th of July, we're actually, I think, going to do the No Fallen Heroes Foundation fighter jet with a couple other L-39s for the flyover. So I talked to the
Amazing.
mayor's team. So we might actually do the flyby for next year. So maybe come to Aspen too, bro. That would be awesome.
Did you get a chance to talk to him at all? What's he like?
I did. He's cooler than you think he is. I mean, obviously all the characters he plays, down to earth, human being. I told him, hey, I'll take you flying in the No Fallen Heroes jet, and he's like, yeah, I don't know if the studio insurance would let me. And Susie's standing there. She's like, I'm miserable. I hate it. He looks at her. He goes, that's okay. It sucks. And then I was lying to you. I wouldn't enjoy it. And he goes, well, maybe you can take my son. So I still actually have to follow up with him.
Seriously?
Yeah, we might take his boy flying. But it was funny. He was trying to use his studio and insurance. And then Susie's like, no, I get sick and it sucks. And he's like, oh, okay, good. Then that's my reason.
When you think of the great American sport, pastime sport, baseball, you think of Kevin Costner.
He's the guy. That's exactly
That
right.
Field of
Yeah.
Dreams real life game last year in, what was it, Iowa with the Yankees, and he walks out of the cornfield. Oh my God. Every
Mhm.
grown man had a lump in their throat when they watched that. But
Yeah, he's a
you
good
know what?
dude.
Good for you. You're like you said, living the life. And it's all about creating opportunities. And hopefully more Americans can understand what that messaging is all about as we seek change moving forward. So real
Amen.
quick again, for anybody who wants to get information for No Fallen Heroes, where can they go online?
Yeah, just go to nofallenheroes.com. And if you're a veteran, first responder, or a family member, because you serve too, click on the top right. It says grant request. If you need a healing grant, we'll hook you up. If you can kind of self-fund yourself, we can get you on a retreat pretty quick. So nofallenheroes.com, or you can follow us on Instagram, which is No Fallen Heroes.
All right, my friend. Good chatting with you. Let's keep in touch, okay?
You bet. Fight's on, Chad. Thank you.
Lights on. I love it. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. What'd you all think? Is there any information that we're missing? Is there anything you want us to cover? As these industries heat up, we're getting access to more and more big hosts. So let us know the questions that you want us to ask for you. As usual, smash that like button. We want this to go viral. Click on that bell for all notifications for the latest interviews that we're doing. And as usual, let's build this community. Subscribe to our channel because we appreciate it, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.